Rumbling, rumbling. It's coming. It's actually here. Rumbling, rumbling. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Hashira Half Hour. And in true Attack on Titan fashion, we are here to discuss Attack on Titan, the final chapters, part 2, Hashira Half Hour, part 1. Phew. The memes practically write themselves, right? I am, as always, joined by my two friends.
What's up, y'all? We're here. Time to Tatakai through the pain. Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. Chapter 4. Footnote 17.
Literally, that's how this feels. Especially because we're trying to follow all of these, like, step by step. So, like, I'm sorry that our episode titles are going to be so long for these, but, it's what we got to do. We got to make this organized, right? So, it's going to be fine, though. We'll tell Takaye.
We'll make it through. But we're here at the end of Attack on Titan. It's bittersweet for sure. I know the show has meant a lot to each one of us, and that our journeys have been each quite different as we've gone through the show. It hits different when this final episode starts, for sure. But when it started, it almost didn't feel real that it was ending. Like, I was watching it and I was like, this is the end? Is this actually the end? Are they going to surprise us and be like, ha, we're getting another part? But it didn't happen. So nonetheless, we did pick up right where we left off with the final chapters, part 1, part 3 of season 4. Okay, I'm going to stop with the jokes anyway. As the Alliance is attempting to kind of like raid Aaron's giant skeleton founding Titan form. As they begin to fight, we see a flashback to Ymir when she set the pig free. So it's revealing that she did it on purpose. It wasn't an accident. And then it shows her kind of watching the fight begin to unfold. This scene uses absolutely no dialogue. However, I think it made it clear that Ymir is fighting back on the Alliance because she's like always held on to this desire for freedom. And that kind of goes along with Eren. So I think she's fighting alongside because she truly believes that Eren will get there. Thoughts on that?
Her pursuit of freedom only chains someone, though. Thoughts on that? No. I mean, I think it's kind of a joke. I mean, not really a joke, but like, what's the cost of freedom? And the cost of freedom is usually chaining someone else down to hold someone else's freedom up, unless you can individually hand it, which I think Eren's tried to do. I've argued that Eren is maybe the most free character in the show. Pawing with the idea, though, maybe I've changed a little bit of my mind, but I still think that he had freedom in order to accept this offer or to accept the, I guess, fate that Ymir had decided for him. But still interesting that this is how this kind of comes up.
Yeah, I thought that this flashback to her setting the pig free was really interesting. And I don't know if we ever got like a bunch of resolution on like what happened to the pig, but it's pretty clear that the pig like represents, I believe in this moment, like the Eldians. I mean she saw herself in the pig, like as a very like first note. She saw herself as something that was like not free but deeply desired it. However, that probably, kind of like Brian was saying, ultimately I imagine that did not lead to the best outcome for the pig. I don't remember if we saw what happened to it, but I have to imagine it probably got caught again and like, was used for whatever sinister purposes, probably eating. So it's like, yes, there's this like brief moment of freedom. Was it worth it for all the punishment that like befell her for losing this pig to like try to set it free? And so obviously that's reflected in like what Eren is trying to do. Like, was it worth it? He's now being hunted by not just anybody, but like his dearest and closest comrades and friends. So is she going to side with him? Like, absolutely. Is she driving even some of the action? I think as we get deeper into the fight, it becomes murkier, like who really has control of the reins. And I don't know that there's a right or a wrong answer to that either. I think it's intentionally murky.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting them showing that because like obviously we got her backstory back in like part 2, and it wasn't even clear if she was actually the one that let the pig free. It's just like everyone pointed to her as if she was like an easy target. But I thought it was interesting because I've always seen the Eldians, especially the ones on Parody Island, up until recently when the walls came down, as like essentially it was like they were pigs being raised for slaughter, like essentially. So I kind of liked the parallels of that. But It was definitely an interesting and well written opening to this episode. Moving on from that, so our Alliance team is quickly trying to come up with a plan to find Zeke, because that's their goal. Is they think that if they can like find Zeke and kill him, that like something's gonna happen, because he's the royal that Eren is using. This is going to be exceptionally hard considering how giant the skeleton of Eren's Titan is. It's friggin' huge. So Armin decides he's actually going to transform and blow up Eren, essentially. He believes it won't kill Eren, but it will help find Zeke. Everyone leaves. The plan doesn't go too well, though.
Yeah, Armin kind of gets got pretty quickly, which is very true Armin fashion. And we love him. Jenna, we love Armin in this house. But
absolutely,
he does have a tendency to like get lost in his own thoughts for sure, which are simultaneously his biggest strength and also probably his greatest weakness, because he just like ruminates, and sometimes I think as good as his decisions might be, he could stand to make some of them a little bit faster. Because that does get him put in a pretty tricky situation here, where he's not killed, but at least like swallowed or put in the mouth of one of these other beast titans that have showed up. Not looking so good, because essentially, at least for the time being, he's out of commission, so that kind of puts the whole plan that they've had so far kaput. Which means everybody on the outside is going to have to be scrambling to try to figure something out, and not to mention Zeke is still there somewhere, and it's not exactly in his agenda right now to be helping them out too much or to make sure that they stay alive. So definitely complicates things, and now we're worried about Armin, and we're worried about everybody else that's on the outside.
Yeah, I think I love Armin. Armin's one of my favorite characters. However, I think this is one of the worst decisions he's made throughout the show. I'm going to say that right now. You're going in blind. You're trying to find the fucking Wetzel's Pretzels in the Mall of America without a goddamn map. Like, are you kidding me? Like, really? Like, that was our plan here? Come on, man. And this is really difficult because also a little bit like graphic, if you will. I don't know if I'm skipping ahead, but this is the point where he gets like his mouth gagged with a tentacle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like just not fun. Also, like weird suffocation kind of thing going on there. So yeah, this was definitely not a fun time. And of course, right, you've got like one of your stronger assets now being caught up. And so, without your QB, what is your football team, right? It's just it's 10 guys running around. Not a good time for the Alliance here.
I mean, he is the commander at this point. So it's like that adds something to their already very tough goal of trying to find Zeke. Finding Eren would be fairly easy. Like, you can probably deduce that he's going to be near the neck, right? But finding Zeke, he could be anywhere. And I think that, like, Eren's Titan is supposed to stretch for, like, miles. I think that's just, like, how big it is. So not only is that tough, but now it's like, we have to rescue Armin. Like, we need him to make decisions and stuff. So it's just like, okay, great. We're off to a great start here. This is going really well. The fight that ensues is a rough one. So Peak is like, I don't know, Eren. I'm just going to blow up his nape. I don't even care. But she's stopped by a version of the Warhammer Titan. And it's shown that, like, Ymir / the founding or the founder, I don't know if it's directly mentioned. I'd have to rewatch it. But it's at least alluded that these thousands of Titans that are appearing, maybe even millions of Titans, were not really Eren's doing. This is Ymir fighting back, essentially, because she is like, she doesn't care if all of Eren's friends die, and I think Eren at the end of the day at this point still does. So she's just like, yeah, no, you can't get to him. So here's millions of former versions of the Nine Titans. As they kind of discuss how to get Armin back, Levi says that even if he was at full health, he wouldn't be willing to jump into that mess. What a statement from humanity's strongest soldier, am I right?
Listen, he's humanity's strongest soldier for a reason, and it's because he's smart enough to know that he still would die in that moment. Just because he's not willing to doesn't mean he's not going to, because he still does his job, right? He still fulfills his purpose of getting in there, finding out what the right move is, and kind of going from there. It's not like he straight up gave up. It's more so that he was like, okay, let's find a different way to do this. I don't think that this is a statement of negativity. I think this is a statement of let's not be stupid because they're this close, right? Like, this is the deciding factor of the world at the moment. Like, if you're playing games with fates of whatever's left of humanity, you cannot just think irrationally and let it go. Like, you need to be able to really make a decision. And because he's essentially the leader at this point, right? Armin's gagged right now. Not in a good way either. He's not like, oh, I'm gagging. He's like, oh, I'm gagging. Help.
No, Brian.
Yeah, it's just not a good time.
I have plenty of thoughts, but I'm like, man, like, of course they had to, like, nerf Levi for this fight. Like, for, like, any fights in the final part. Because he was so strong that it's like he probably really could have landed some damage if he hadn't been nerfed, essentially. But him saying, like, even if I was in the prime, I don't know if that's, like... I think that's just, like, self-preservation. I mean, he's gone up against, like, some of the worst of them. Like, he's gone up against Zeke before, and Zeke is, like, a challenge in and of itself. But of course, like, Levi versus Beast Titan is one of the most highly rated IMDb episodes of all time for a reason. It's like, he took all those other ones out that were in the lineup next to him, like, so cold and, like, silent. It was so cool. But this is, like, on a different level, because these aren't regular millions of Titans. These are all like the original like 9 Titans. And so this is like millions of Warhammers and millions of Beast Titans and millions of Attack Titans and Armored and Female Titans. And it's like, he's not stupid. So I think I agree. Like, they don't really have a choice. They're going to have to do something about this. But rather than maybe one of Armin's like admittedly not most thought out decisions, which like understandably so, they also have to act quickly and decisively here. I think he's trying to encourage them not to just go running into their death for no reason. It's like, let's be more calculated about this and try to like get around these things, probably without fighting as many of them as possible, and certainly without getting anybody killed as much as possible, because there's only so many of us left too to fight actual Zeke when we find him, and to fight Eren if it comes down to it. So I do think it's like a hell of a statement, but at the same time, it's like they didn't get this far. They didn't lose all these people to have it be for nothing. So like they really have to make every person and every moment count. And he knows that. He has years of experience.
Yeah, he has, I mean, probably by far the most combat experience of probably everyone here, because of like just his age alone. Like, he's in his 30s, I think. So it's like even those that came from Marley, you know, like Reiner and Peak and stuff, like he still has more experience than they do. And we also have to remember that Armin literally just became the commander. Like, it hasn't been that long since they left, you know, where they were at when Hanji died. So like they're still going through the loss of Hanji, and then also like he's having to make these decisions that will literally determine if the world survives or not. And Levi was a captain, or technically is still a captain. So like, yes, he's not the commander, which is usually just like reserved for someone with more brains and less like combat experience. But he still is a captain that like is able to make decisions and is very smart. And one of the reasons why he survives a lot of the fights is what he knows when to stop. Essentially, he knows his own abilities, and he also knows that he's not at 100% right now. He's probably at what, 50? Like, if we're being nice. So I think the statement really just showed the situation that they're in is just really not great. Like they're up against something that is far greater than what they're really capable of, but they're willing to try, because if they don't do anything, they're all that's left of the world, and that's crazy. So what happens after is brutal. Like, these times just keep coming. Everyone's kind of like saving each other. Like they're working together really well as a team, considering they were enemies until you know, like a few days ago. The time that has passed since the beginning of season 4 is really not that much. The problem is Berthold's Titan shows up, and this is when things really go downhill, because he grabs onto Reiner and like squeezes him. We think that Reiner is dead for a minute, but Jean had rescued him. They're hanging on for dear life, but both of their ODM is broken in certain areas. Connie is unconscious and hanging from one of the ribs. Levi saves him, but his leg gets destroyed in the process. So now he's even down lower. Like, he's down to 20% full strength. This is just like all hope is being lost. Mikasa's like the only one who's fine. She's like, I'm strong. It's like, Mikasa, you can like, you are very strong. Like, I will not put that past her. She's so freaking strong. But we're really on a downward slump here.
I mean, we kind of knew that they already like were like way far behind as far as like their resources and their like strength, and I think that they know that too. It's like, this is almost a shot in the dark, but we have to try. We have to try because like nobody else is going to be able to, and like this is all of humanity versus like a few of us that could try, even if it means that we die in the process. So yes, things are on the downward slump, but I think that I still had hope at this point. It's tricky being a manga reader again, but after having not revisited it for a while, it's like they're in rough shape. They were in rough shape when it started. It's getting worse, and like they've been in rough situations before, but never quite as dire as this, with so few people left standing, and even fewer now. So I don't know. Things are not looking good, but I still am hanging on to this hope that they can pull through and figure out a way to stop Eren.
Yeah, this is one of the moments that really broke me during the episode. This is where I started to cry, because the turning point of the moment here is, I guess, kind of not the turning point, but I would say the moment that got me the most was when John was like, Reiner, we're still scouts. Like, we just don't know when to quit. And I was like, that cured my fucking depression for a hot minute. So it was like, goddamn, like, I'm a scout too. And like, this is like a kind of a big analogy for life. Like, even in the darkest perils of your life, like, you should keep fighting and you should still tatakaye with all of your heart. So like, I definitely, even though this was like so dark in a moment like that, Jean saying that to Reiner, he's like, kind of like I said earlier in some of the earlier parts of us talking about AO2, where like they finally put their differences aside. Like, they really did finally say, like, let's, nut up or shut up, right? Like, get up and get in there.
Yeah, I was crying too, because like John just saying like, we're scouts. He doesn't even say like, you were a scout and I'm a scout. Like, it is, we're scouts, and they like where they were and then where they got and now where they are now is like so incredible, just coming together in the way that they have. I was like, oh my gosh. And Reiner's like, let me go, like, I have one more transformation. And John's like, you're gonna die, like, you're just gonna fall into like the rumbling, like, that's right below us. Like, they can't even fall off of this thing and try and get away. It's just like, you either you fight and you win, or you lose and you die. Like, that's where they're at. And it's just, you can really feel that in this moment with the way everything is going down. But, and it's time for us to talk about one of my favorite characters, one of the most underrated characters in my opinion. Falco is here to save the day. Falco's the best. We stand Falco in this house. As we saw at the end of the last episode, he was having a vision. He believed it was memories of the future, of him flying above the clouds. So they decided to test it out, and his Titan can in fact fly. He comes in to rescue the squad. They all get on board so they can like get away for a moment and regroup. This is exactly what this group needed. We're feeling hope again. What did you think of this power of Falco's and how it saved everyone, my sweet boy?
I think this is really interesting, and I think this was foreshadowed not only in the previous episode, but in season 2, the opening with Shinzo Sasageo. I think they kind of foreshadowed this really well, because if you saw, there was like a dinosaur, there was like a velociraptor, there was a stegosaurus, there was a bunch of different animals. And I think that was not only the Beast Titan in play, but the Jaw Titan, because, well, actually, let me retract that. I want to say it's maybe a combination of both, right? Because he had Zeke's spinal fluid, but he also had Porco's Titan. So I think that at this point, that was kind of how he got to this bird power, is really when he became that culmination of two Titans. I don't even know if that's a thing, but maybe, that's how he got to this bird Titan. I think it was really important that he got to this stage, because he was the, crucial player to move him out of the way.
I also really, really like Falco's character. I think, as much as I don't like Gabby, and as much as I know that she's still a foil for Eren, who I do like, He absolutely was my favorite of like the young Marleyans that we got to meet. And this development was with him was like foreshadowed from the very, very first moment that we saw him, because back when season 4 technically started years
3 years
ago. But when it did, it opened up with him on the battlefield. And at first all of us are just like, who even is this? Like, where's our cast and characters? But there were like feathers flying past him, like in this shot as he's like staring up at the sky as well. So I just thought that was like a really, really nice use of foreshadowing with this character. And it's so gratifying because I forget who mentions this, but somebody at this point has said like, oh, I don't think that there ever has been, you know, a flying Titan. And if there ever was, it was like thousands and thousands of years ago. Like, it hasn't happened since. But of course, it's like, you know, call it like the nod to evolution or whatever you want, like something that is perfectly adapted for the exact need that they have at this moment. It's just so gratifying and it's so cool. And poor little guy, he's like, you know, they flash to him like on the boat. He's like, no, I think I can do it. And it's like, well, we're going to have to just test it out in the moment. He's like, I think I can figure it out. I don't know. Maybe it came as natural. It looks like it came pretty naturally to him, but part of me's trying to imagine, like, trying to control your body as though it were a plane. And it's like, oh, and no pressure, by the way, but, like, humanity is on the line. So, just, like, poor little guy. But he's doing a great job, and he has to show off for his girlfriend. So...
He is definitely trying his best, and I think that Falco is just a very pure-hearted kid, and, like, he's going to do whatever he can to jump in and help. And, of course, they were, like, Gabby, Annie, and Falco were all, like, being sent away from it. They were choosing, well, Annie chose not to fight, and then Gabby and Falco were forced against their will to stay on the boat. So I think Falco is, like, ready to jump in because he genuinely wants to help, you know, save humanity. To go off of what Emily said about foreshadowing, though, in episode 1, there even is a moment where after, like, they rescue him from, like, because he was just, like, laying in the battlefield. We don't know how he got there. They don't really ever touch on that. But his brother rescues him, and then, like, they get into the trenches, and they start, like, tending to his wounds, and he's like, I was flying through the air with a sword. Wah, wah, wah. Like, that foreshadow, like, he literally was talking about flying through the clouds. Like, in episode 1, he's like, what was that? Like, it was so crazy. And then also his name is Falco, which is very close to Falcon. And it's just like his character from the very start has been associated with birds, which, like, there's a lot of bird motif within the show because they represent freedom. So fantastic writing. And I will take any chance that I can to talk about Falco because he genuinely is one of my favorite characters in the entire show. He's such a sweet boy. I will protect him. That being said, as they have been rescued by Falco, they regroup and come up with a plan. So essentially, like, they got to rescue Armin, but they still were like, okay, do we find Zeke? But they're kind of moving on from that. So the group tries to decide they're going to rescue Armin from the back of Aaron's Titan, and then the rest will try to take Aaron down. Of course, this is a tough plan, especially for Mikasa, who's, like, still hoping that they can get out of this with Aaron alive, right? Annie kind of assures her in a way that she can. It's like, she only needs to focus on saving Armin. The rest will, like, don't even think about, like, the other part. Jean is, like, pleading with Mikasa, like, let's kill him. Like, this is all we have left. This is our only option at this point. And she's spent the entire story wanting to protect him. And it's clear, in my opinion, that she very much loves him. Even if she's not a part of the killing blow, do you think that she's, like, thinking clearly, like, she's going to be able to help in this?
Can she do it? I don't know about her, like, mental fortitude to be able to, like, outweigh. Part of me believes that, like, she still would want to try to save Aaron and, like, take out everybody else because it's so clear that she loves him so dearly. However, I do think that she needs to be the one to do it. First of all, just, like, logistically, I don't think anybody else could. The only other person who I think maybe could take on Aaron at this point would have been Levi. At his prime, and obviously he's doing, like, worse than he was 5 minutes ago, so, like, it can't be Levi, but it has to be, like, one of the Ackermans, I think. And just skill wise, I think it's gonna have to be Mikasa that goes in and deals, like, the final blow here. I also just think that it makes for a much more interesting story, in addition to this freedom or like destiny versus choice, and like one of the bigger messages about Attack on Titan, like it is a love story too. And it's like it's a very tragic love story. The relationship between Mikasa and Eren is like key to a lot of the things that have happened in the story, and I just think that it's really strong writing that as much as she's protected him, that she would need to be the one that needs to end things as well. So we'll see what she's actually able to do, because she's definitely frozen up before. Even just thinking that he was possibly dead, nothing to do with her being involved in any part of that. And I can't even imagine having to like even consider being the person that would like kill the person that you love the most in this entire world. Like, I can't even begin to fathom that. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't be able to do it. So if she's somehow able to make that happen, I think it'll be nothing short of a miracle, but also like a sacrifice that is going to stick with her for the rest of her life, that she probably will not recover from, so she might not be able to.
Yeah, as I was reading this in the manga, I definitely doubted Mikasa's ability to decide whether she could or couldn't do this. I think this is a really interesting predicament to put her in. Kind of like Emily said, that she had already frozen up in earlier moments when there was no involvement of her in Eren's, harming or anything like that. So now looking at it, can she really do this? I don't know. It was very difficult, and I originally thought how the ending would go was that she would fumble at the end. And we'll get to the ending, of course, later, but I definitely didn't think she was going to be able to do this. And I thought that she was going to freeze up in her emotions because of how long she's tried to protect Eren from the opening scenes of the episodes of the series, right? She's like, why are you crying? And she's getting the wood for him. Like, everything that girl did was for Eren. So I think that it is really interesting to pose her in this predicament to now try and close this part of her life.
Yeah, it broke my heart to see her reacting to like the plan. And obviously at this point, like the plan is for mostly we need to rescue Armin and still use like the explosion to kill Eren. So we're not really quite feeling like she has to actually do anything, but it still is like even if she were not to play a part in killing Eren, she's still losing him, And Annie is trying to reassure her. She's trying to like, you don't need to be a part of it. Just think about rescuing Armin, like get him back and don't worry about the rest. But like, this is Mikasa. Like, she truly has spent her life, like from the moment that Eren wrapped that scarf around her, it's been just a love for him that's so pure and so protective. And we've seen that play out so many times. So to see her in this situation, like I would freeze up. I would be like, leave me on the side of the like I can't even do it. Or I'd be fighting back and saying, no, we got to still find a different way where we're not going to kill him. So for them to finally get to this point where everyone's kind of coming to that conclusion that they have to kill Eren, but she is still holding on and being like, I don't know if I can do this. It's so realistic, for someone that you love. Like, obviously, I don't think any of us could ever be put in that situation, no matter what. Like, if our significant other went and did something crazy like this, I don't think we would be able to be a part of like the process of fighting back. It'd be too hard. So she's already strong to be here and doing her best to help her teammates. But oh man, it's getting worse and worse for me. Like, just the emotions are just all over the place, and the tears are coming as this fight just continues. They've regrouped and they're heading back. We jump over to Armin, and he's crying over what seems like to be his dead body. Like, his body is laying there, but he's also there. Like, there's two versions of him. He's just like saying that he's useless. He's wanting to fight back. He's like, your friends are gonna die. Like, move. Why won't you move? And again, I say this a lot as the resident like voice actor stan here. The voice acting from Armin's voice actor in this episode. First of all, I don't know if you know this, but Armin's voice actor is a girl, and she is just so talented. She's also Momo in My Hero Academia. And she's actually going to be a little bit more prevalent in Demon Slayer soon, as she played the Biwa demon at the beginning of season 3. Very excited to see her range come through. But what she did here, and this happens multiple times in the episode, she put her heart and soul into this final episode. I mean, all the voice actors did, of course, but like this moment here was like, oh my gosh, like just the voice itself was making me cry. as Armin is begging himself to get up and move, we then just start to see the utter destruction of the world. And this helps us kind of understand the scope of what the Rumbling is doing as they show us different countries and different cultures. We're seeing, like, it's making this world of Attack on Titan feel like the real world. You know, we're seeing the African safari, we're seeing a snowy like area, and all over the world these people are being crushed. We see a mother who is carrying her crying baby, and she's desperately trying to save the baby as they're getting pushed, like this crowd of people is getting pushed off of a cliff. And it's almost like there's this like flicker of hope as she like tries to keep the baby from falling with her, and these people are like passing the baby off as they fall to try and keep the baby from falling. And this like, I'm tearing up just thinking about it with the music. Like, oh my gosh, I feel like this scene was showing that there really is good in humanity, and these people don't deserve to die. What did you think of this scene and how it went down?
The scene was really difficult for me to watch. I thought it was just personally a little triggering because some people were choosing to jump off the cliff. So I thought that was a little hard. But at the end of the day, it is like their life and they are being threatened by millions of Titans. So it's a fictional scenario. And that was something I had to cope with on my own. But I thought, yeah, it was still definitely something that was trying to instill hope that even in the darkest moments, like people still try and find a way. I think Jurassic Park comes to mind when it says life finds a way. And I think that was really interesting to show like how these people in their most desperate moments, when they believe that their final moments are upon them, that they're still trying to pass this piece of life that thought it was difficult.
I mean, this scene is very difficult, but I actually felt like it was one of the most hopeful, in my opinion. So I'm, like a very gentle disagree, but there's a lot of symbolism in this scene. First of all, we've seen, it's just so interesting how everything comes full circle, but we've seen the mother before in Attack on Titan. We saw her when she was pregnant, and Eren and some of the other scouts were like kind of passing by, but like, so just like the finality and like the full circle moment of like seeing like, oh, here she is like with her baby. And obviously it's like that desperate hope of a mother to just like keep her child alive. But of course, like the child here represents, I think, like the future, obviously future generations of people who might be able to like build a different world than what had led to this. And I think that a lot of the Marleyans, at least that we've seen, have recognized like the part that they might have played in bringing this to fruition, but the baby had nothing to do with it. And so like to see like the beauty and the humanity of all of these people who don't know this baby and who are like desperately trying to save themselves, pass this baby along, even though the baby's probably going to get trampled because the colossal titans are there like approaching anyway. Even in one of their lowest moments of like despair and a lack of hope, they're still passing the baby or passing the future along in hopes that like there will be a future to pass along. The way that this was animated as well, I thought was really tastefully done and is definitely a nod to some really famous film that's been done. I thought that it was like a very, very discerning and like obvious kind of nod, but like definitely a choice, because this scene happens primarily in like black and white and like muted colors, and the baby is in a red blanket being passed back. So, of course, the use of red in Attack on Titan is already really important. Mikas's scarf is like one of the most iconic props that's used, and like the red color definitely matters. But the fact that this was black and white and this like innocent child is only in red is like 1000% a nod to Schindler's List, which is, of course, like a Spielberg movie. And for anyone that hasn't seen it, it's a very rough film that's like about the Holocaust and about Schindler, who like helped to save as many of the Jews as possible. But like one of the starkest and like most upsetting, or in Schindler's List, it's not really hopeful, but there's like a little girl that's seen a few times in the red coat who like does not make it. But the whole film is in black and white except for this girl in the red coat. So I thought that this was a really nice reference to that really famous film decision, but it's more hopeful than what we see in Schindler's List, and as similar as like the parallels between something like Nazi Germany might be to like the world that we're seeing unfold in Attack on Titan and in Marley. It's almost like this is Isayama's like answer to like war is needless, children are the victim, the future is the victim of these decisions. But in this particular moment and the way that this was carried out and the baby was passed back, it represented to me a sense of hope that like even though the situation seems hopeless, maybe here's this like one piece of color that could make it this child that like could carry the future that represents like all these children and like everybody from a future generation that could help to shape things for the better. So I thought this was probably one of my favorite moments in the entire episode, including the parts that we're not going to cover today. It really stuck with me in the manga, and it stuck with me even more after getting to see what they chose to do with the use of color and the use of animation to bring this to life.
Yeah, I felt like this scene that went down, it was hard to watch. And in the moment where they're trying to save the baby, it was hard to watch for me too, but I did feel like it was a hopeful moment. It was like these people they're not accepting of death, like they're pushing, they're trying to get away from both sides, because it's either, either side is certain death, but they're trying desperately to protect this baby that they see as the future. Like if they can protect this baby, then humanity won't go extinct, essentially, is like the way they see it, and it's just to see like these people that are still in this situation of certain death, still trying to protect others was, man, it's a beautiful story. And there's so much within the world going on right now that like we can call to, and to see like a baby just being saved by these people is so hopeful to me for a number of different things. I think you guys touched on it really well as well. So we'll move on from that. This chapter actually closes out with Armin realizing that he is in the paths and not dead, even though it kind of looks like he is. And on top of that, Zeke is there as well. Now we're going to kind of cover their conversation in the next chapter, because that's when it takes place, because this is the end of chapter 4 of the final parts, or part 1 of the final chapter, part 2. Okay, I won't go back into that meme. The Battle of Heaven and Earth was the name of this chapter. Do you have any last call outs before we wrap up this part of our episode? No? Okay. Well, we're going to preserve our favorite moments for the final chapter so we can look at the episode as a whole. So we're going to move right into today's Eldian secret. And it is actually about the baby crying that we were just speaking on. That was actually the voice of Yuki Kaji, who is, of course, Aaron's voice actor's baby. He sent in the producers a recording of his baby crying, and I believe his wife is also a voice actor, pretty well known. I can't remember who she is off the top of my head, but this baby is already a talented voice actor.
Hell yeah. Set up that trust fund now.
Right? But he sent in a recording of the baby crying to the producers, and they like cleaned it up, made it sound nice, and so that baby crying is his own child, which was, I think, just a really beautiful and like cute little side note for the episode. So the more you know. But that is it for today. Stay tuned. I promise there will not be another 8 months of waiting for part 2. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, turn on that notification bell so you get a notification for all of our new posts. Also drop a comment in the video and we might answer in a future episode. If you are listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any podcast platform, don't forget to download the podcast and use that Q&A feature to answer the question that we have in there. We might answer in a future episode as well. Also, don't forget to follow us on all of our social media. We are on Instagram and TikTok as Hashira Half Hour, and X, formerly Twitter, as Hashira Half. With that, I say, Shinso Sasageyo.
Shinzo Sasageyo!
Shinzo Sasageyo. Tatagai. Eren Yeager.
Tatagai, Eren Yeager.
Eren Yeager.
Eren Yeager.
Ba, 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 ba.
Bum, bum,
Blah, blah, blah,
bum.
blah, blah.
It's a fidget spinner.
Okay, wait, hold on. I tried playing pickleball like a fidget spinner, and it did not go well for me. So I don't know how Levi's slashing Titans like that.
He's an anime character, what can we say? He's got the god of anime behind him.
I've got the power of God and anime on my side.
You beat me to it.
Oh,
Oh
man.
boy.
All
All right.